Welcome back again to Irinka's Kitchen. I have another family favorite recipe that I'd like to share with you, and this is called Hungarian Plum Dumplings, Szilvás Gombóc. And this was a quite popular recipe during the season of plums, and so my mom would always make this during plum season, so around August or September. Where I lived, and then my grandmother would also make this favorite recipe. What I've done is I've frozen about 20 of the plums into a Ziploc kind of bag, and I put it into the freezer. And so if you're out of season for the plums, you can always pull those out and make this great recipe later on in the year. So what I've done is I've in 2 liters of water and 1 teaspoon of salt to a large pot, what I've done is I've cooked potatoes with the skins on them, and they're white potatoes. Those work well with this recipe. And then I peeled the skin off the potatoes, and then I sliced them into small pieces, and I mashed them in a large mixing bowl. What I did was I used an electric hand mixer, or you can use one of these ones here, the hand mashers. So then what I did was I added 2 tablespoons of margarine and 3 eggs, 1 teaspoon of salt to the potatoes. And I'm just going to show you what this looks like, the consistency of it looks like. So I've prepared the potatoes for this recipe. Now what you need is approximately 3 cups of flour. So what I've done is I've measured out some flour here, 3 cups of it. And what I do is I'm going to gradually add this to my potatoes. So I've already mashed the potatoes with a electric hand mixer. That's the easiest way you can do it, but if you don't have that, you can have one of the hand mashers sort of tools in your kitchen. You could use that to do that. So what I do is I gently, and I'm just going to bring the camera down for you, and I'm going to show you exactly how this is done. So what I do is I kind of gently knead in the flour. You don't want to over knead this dough mixture. So I'm going to slowly put in, and I put in a cup, so I'm not going to over knead it. So I'm just kind of rotating my bowl here, and I'm gently mixing in the flour. I went over to my mom's house last week, and I got a sort of a tutorial on how to do the kneading, and I watched her as she gently mixed together the flour mixture. And it is quite a sticky recipe. So but like my mom says, you have to persevere, and the results are actually amazing once it's completed, and they're very tasty. So then I'm going to put another cup of flour, probably about a half a cup of flour again. I'm going to sprinkle it in there, and I'm going to gently knead this together again. So I'm going to make sure that I'm doing this at a very gentle, slow pace. And then I'm going to take some more flour. You need about approximately 3 cups. Then I add another half a cup to it approximately, and then I continue to knead it. So I'm going to continue doing this and get this all together, and I'm going to show you what the consistency should look like. Welcome back again to Irinka's Kitchen. I have just put together the dough for the plum dumplings, Szilvás Gombóc, and It's a very popular recipe with my family and my grandmother and mother. So they would always make up plum dumplings during plum season. But also my mom would also put some plums, fresh plums, into as sort of like a freezer bag, and she would freeze some plums for later on in the year when there wasn't plum season. So she would have some frozen plums, she'd thaw them out, and she'd use them for this great recipe. So if you'd wanted to make this again sometime in January or February, you would be able to do that. You'd be able to do this off season, also make the plum dumplings then. So what I've got here is I've kneaded together, very gently kneaded together, as I showed you previously, that I've put the dough together, and it's kind of a sticky consistency. So when you touch it, it kind of is sticky. So what I've done is I put some flour on the bottom of the bowl here, so that it's not sticky. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take an amount, probably the size of kind of like a tennis ball. And what I have here is I have a bowl of flour that I kind of dip my fingers into in my hands. So I'm going to make sure that my hands are covered with flour. So then I'm going to roll it into a ball. It's going to bring the camera up just a little bit, slightly. I'm going to roll it into a ball, and then I'm going to take some more flour. I'm going to make sure that my hands have lots of flour in them. I'm going to dip them in there, and then I'm going to continue to roll. And then I'm going to flatten the ball, and I'm going to pull it apart. So what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to make it this piece larger than the plum. So I've got some plums here. These were actually frozen in my freezer. I froze a bunch of them down. And then I'm going to try to cover the plums. So I'm just going to pull the camera up just a little bit so you can see me also doing this. So I've sort of made sure that it's closed quite well, because you don't want the plums to be, while they're cooking in the water. And I've got 8 liters of water in a stock pot. I've chosen to use a stock pot, a large stock pot for that, and I've added 2 teaspoons of salt into the stock pot. I'm just going to roll it, and it's going to look like this. It's almost the size of a tennis ball. So I've already pre-rolled a few of them, and I'm just waiting for the water to start boiling. It's not quite there yet, but I've got the salt ready, and so I'm going to continue doing this. So I'm going to do one more for you. So it is quite sticky, so what I would do is I would just dip my hands in the flour. So to have a bowl with flour ready, and then pull off a piece, and again I dip it into some flour to make sure it's not sticky, because it is going to have a sticky consistency. So I'm just going to keep rolling that, and then I'm going to flatten the ball, and I'm going to pull it apart, making sure that it's large enough so that it'll cover your plum, depending on the size of your plums too. These are kind of like medium size. And I've kind of drained off the juice, so I'm going to cover the plum and make sure that there's no opening hole in there. And then I just again dip my hands into a bit of flour, and then I roll it around, make sure it's got a little sort of looks like a round ball again. And then what I'm going to do is, as soon as the water starts boiling, I'm going to put it into the boiling water. Now, how do you know when it's ready? When it starts when the plum dumplings start to float, rise up above the sort of onto the water. They kind of float on top of the water. They're not quite ready then. You have to kind of wait for about another 5 minutes or so. Let them cook and let them float on the top of the water. And then what you do is you check with a fork. You take one of them out and you check to see if the dough is cooked. And then I've got this. The second step is with the breadcrumbs. I'm going to show you how to do that, because then after the dumplings are ready, I'm going to strain off the dumplings, and then I'm going to roll them in some browned breadcrumbs. So I'm going to show you that process also. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I will be back and to show you the next steps of preparing this great dish. Welcome back again to Arinka's Kitchen. I have on the stove a pot of water, 8 liters of water with 2 teaspoons of salt, and I brought it to a boil, and then of course I showed you how to make the dumplings. So they've been cooking, and in order for them to be ready, you have to wait until the dumplings float up to the top, and then you have to cook them for approximately between 5 and 8 minutes. So you need to take one of the dumplings out and test them to make sure that the dough is cooked, the potato dough is cooked. So pretty much all of them are ready. There's about 13 of them that are ready, and what I did was I added 2 tablespoons of margarine and 2 tablespoons of butter to a frying pan, Teflon frying pan, and melted the butter at minimum heat, brought it up to medium heat, and then added 300 grams of breadcrumbs to it. And I got the ready-made sort of breadcrumbs from the bakery, but you could make your own breadcrumbs by using day-old bread and cutting it up into squares and baking it in the oven and doing that and grinding it. But I bought mine at a bakery. So, and then of course I browned the breadcrumbs and added it to this large serving dish here. And then as the dumplings were ready, I had with a bowl and a colander ready beside the stove, and then I would use one of these ladles to bring out the dumplings. I think this one is ready. This is the 14th one. So I'm just going to put this one into the colander, and I'm going to let the water sort of drip out of it. So that I'm going to continue cooking that, and I'm going to let the water drain off of the dumpling. And then what I did, I put them into the breadcrumb into the serving dish, and then as the dumplings were ready, I would cover them with the breadcrumbs. So what I'd like to do is show you what this great recipe looks like. I've also put some on a plate ready for my husband to eat, and he can't wait to try it and taste it, and I can't wait to try it and taste it too. So I'm just going to bring this up to the camera and show you on a serving dish what this looks like. Now this looks great. What I've done is I've cut apart one of the dumplings, and you can see the plums inside of the dumplings. And what I do is I usually put a small amount of sugar on top of the dumplings, as much as you like. You can use the sugar replacement ones if you're a diabetic. You can use sort of like a sugar replacement for this recipe, and so this would be ready to eat. And what I do is I usually have extra breadcrumbs, so that the dumplings are surrounded by the breadcrumbs. It's just for presentation. It tastes just great. So I'm just going to hand that over to my husband. Bon appetit, Daryl. And we have a whole bunch of them in a serving dish. I just wanted to show you what this great recipe looks like in a serving dish. So you could put this onto the table, and people could help themselves to it and have as many as you like. Usually 2 would be enough for me, 2 small ones, but sometimes 3 if they're small ones. You could have 3 of them. And so I wouldn't add the sugar to this. I would just add it to, you would have a sugar bowl, such as this one here. And I have this little container here, and I put this on my table with a spoon, and people can add as much sugar as they like. So if you have any questions or comments about the recipe, you can contact me at irene@irinkaskitchen.com or irinkaskitchen.com. Until next time, bon appetit, jó étvágyat!